Morning everyone, it's Lucy from Mind Food, and this is our fifth session of Growing Wellbeing, and this one is all about sleep, why it's so important to your mental health and how you can get as much of it as you need. Now in previous sessions we've talked a fair bit about using techniques like mindfulness to settle your mind during the day, and what we'll see from today's session is that that's just as important at night, and that's because at night, although you may be getting some rest, actually there are some fairly active processes happening in your brain while you're asleep. There is a repairing situation going on. You're also consolidating memories and learning. You're flushing out waste products from the day that you don't need up in your brain anymore. And to get all of those things, you really need quality sleep. It's not about quantity. There are guidelines about how much sleep you should get, and generally I think the idea is that you should get between 7 and 9 hours sleep a night, and for different people that will be different. Some people seem to manage on less. I happen to need quite a bit more. So it's really about knowing what you need. One thing that isn't essential though is sleeping through the day. That's really not a helpful place to be, and a particularly tricky one if you're struggling with depression and lack of motivation, because although you might be asleep during the day, you're not getting that quality sleep that is associated with all these repair processes. And of course we all know what it's like when we don't get enough sleep. You can't think straight, you forget stuff, and probably most damning of all is you kind of revert to your autopilot, which for a lot of people who come to Mind Food, myself included, that autopilot can be being very stressy, it can be being in a state of perpetual alert, so you're quite jumpy, and it's a real vicious cycle, because when you're feeling like that you tend to gravitate to staying up later, watching telly, scrolling through stuff on social media, maybe playing computer games, and all of that is stoking your brain with new information at just the sort of time that it's supposed to be switching off. But also, just to add insult to injury, you're feeding yourself with a load of blue light, which is equivalent to daylight in terms of stimulating that kind of awakeness that keeps us going through the day. So it's really important to find some rest before bedtime, and that's about finding working with circadian rhythms. So circadian rhythms are really basically your body clock, and a lot of the rhythm is based around our reaction to daylight. And that's really one of our most basic connections to the natural environment. So since time began until very, very recently, people would get up at dawn and then take some rest when the sun sets. And it's worth taking a few minutes just to have a think about how far away from that you might have come yourself. And it's really worth having a think about how you're going to reset, so that you're much more in the rhythm. So obviously being up early is an incredibly difficult thing to do if you're struggling with stress or depression. You might not feel like you can get out of bed for days sometimes, so how are you going to start getting up at the crack of dawn? And the trick there is really to make yourself do it. You don't actually have to take on too much too soon. You just have to get the ball rolling. So that means setting your alarm clock nice and early, and sitting in light for an hour or so, and just by doing that you're going to start stimulating some of those daytime awake kind of reactions, and by getting daylight nice and early in the day you're also stifling the production of melatonin, which is like the sleepy hormone. Now, given that you'll have made yourself do this or get up at some ungodly hour, there's every chance in the first instance that you might feel you've peaked by very early in the day and may need to go and have a rest, and that's absolutely fine, but what I'd suggest is not going back to bed, maybe getting some rest in a chair, no more than 20 minutes. I don't think you want to try and keep yourself in the light. Remember, it's about trying to be stingy with your daytime sleeping so that you can start to feel tired earlier in the evening. So yes, you're just going to have to persevere a little bit with it for a while. And then when it comes to bedtime, I think it's quite interesting that we're really not so different from children, even as grown-ups, in terms of our needs around bedtime. So if you have a young child, you'll know already that it's important to get tea on the table nice and early, avoid sugary drinks. You want to be trying to slow down activities, dimming the lights, maybe settling into a bedtime story. You might have invested in some blackout blinds, and really, as grown-ups, we're not really that different in our needs. I guess one change might be, instead of gravitating towards sugary drinks, you might be more inclined to reach out for some alcohol or caffeine, and they're both pretty dreadful for sleep quality properties. So yeah, best to avoid really if you can. If you're a busy thinker, you're probably doing quite a lot of dwelling on thoughts from the day or stuff that you're going to be tackling the next day. So a good idea is to jot a few things down on a piece of paper before you settle into bed. So you might, if there are thoughts that are sort of that you're kind of dwelling on, just jot those down. If there's a particular task that you're going to have to do the next day, again, write that down. It's all about helping your brain let go of stuff as it tries to get some rest. And so you, and even if you wake up in the middle of the night and have a little think about if you're woken up by a thought, it's worth jotting that down on a piece of paper, even in the dark, simply just to help yourself offload. So yes, so then you're going to have a little think about settling your mind, and to do that you're going to maybe think of you might do a guided meditation. So we're going to send a link out to Mark Williams' Sounds and Thoughts guided meditation, which is great, particularly if you feel very distracted by noise at night. It's a good way of helping you sort of detach yourself from noises and not get drawn into the stories around them. The second thing you might want to do is you might want to have a little swat up on what abdominal breathing is, or belly breathing, or diaphragmatic breathing. What you're really looking to do is develop a technique to help you slow down your breathing, as that's a very way of generally slowing you down too. And then the third thing you might want to try is a version of our senses 1, 2, 3 exercise, which is about the daytime one is about looking for 3 things that are as different as possible. The second thing would be to listen out for sounds at different distances, and the third one is about feeling for 3 textures. At night you're going to do a version which involves keeping your eyes open for as long as possible and discerning different shapes in the dark. And then the second thing that you're going to do is you're going to feel for 3 textures without moving a muscle. So that might be noticing the feel of your head against the pillow, or of your duvet on your feet, or something like that. And then you're going to listen out for sounds as far into the distance as you can. And if you keep listening out for those, then quite often you'll find that sleep comes quite quickly. Now, if it doesn't, then it's really useful, really important not to panic. If you start worrying about not getting sleep, then the cycle becomes even more vicious. And the best thing you can do is really to focus on getting some physical rest. And you might want to distract yourself with doing something mindful, like reading a book. You might want to do some meditation. You might want to listen to some gentle music that settles you, but really don't get in a sweat about not getting sleep at the time. What you're going to do is the next day you're going to set your alarm just as early, and you're going to have another go. And if that doesn't work for some time, or if you're feeling you're not getting the rest that you need, even if you are asleep, then it's worth investigating or seeking out some specialist support. There are some brilliant sleep charities like the Sleep Foundation. Your GP may be able to help you. So yeah, that's really my advice on sleep for today. I hope it's been useful. As ever, if you could like us, love us, follow us wherever you find us, if you could share with anybody who you think could benefit, and we'll catch up next week. Thanks. Bye.